Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And I want to say good morning to you, good evening, or good night, whenever you're looking at this video. This is the Saints Q&A, where I answer questions from the Who That Nation. First off, also I want to mention Mardi Gras. Hope everybody had a safe, wonderful Fat Tuesday. I'm recording this on a Wednesday. You know, that's one thing I do miss about staying in New Orleans, the opportunity to go to Mardi Gras. Going to those Zulu parades, that truck parade is one of my favorites, no doubt. But I hope everybody had a good time, and I hope everybody, is not too hungover. But anyway, man, this is the opportunity that you all have to ask any questions that you may have to me. And, I just give my opening statements. I talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. I just uploaded a video that's going to be coming out pretty soon. Those that follow the State of the Saints on YouTube, you're probably about to get a video about wide receiver Henry Ruggs III. It is the 12th installment of the State of the Saints podcast draft profile edition. I'm talking about Henry Ruggs on this edition. Is somebody that a lot of people in the Who That Nation wanted me to talk about, wanted me to address. So I hope y'all enjoy it, man. I think that you all probably going to get a better understanding of how I feel about Henry Ruggs. So I'm not going to tell you what I said, because then you wouldn't have to look at the video. So check it out, man. The 12th installment of the State of the Saints podcast draft prospect edition. And also, man, y'all check out the State of the Game podcast. It is a spinoff of the State of the Saints, where I talk about other topics in sports. I think the last thing I talked about, of course, was the fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. I kind of seen that coming, but y'all check it out, man. Y'all follow the State of the Game podcast on Facebook and also on YouTube. So let me go ahead and just talk a little bit about some Saints news, man. I think some people already know that Vonn Bell's brother was tragically killed, I think, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in a car accident. I think he was driving a Honda Civic, and I think he hit the back of like a tow truck or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But my condolences go out to Vonn Bell and his family at this tough time. I couldn't imagine how I feel to lose a brother. I'm fortunate enough and blessed enough to have two brothers, that I love dearly. And, man, I couldn't imagine what it would feel like to lose one of them, because, they mean everything to me. And, once again, my condolences go towards Vonn Bell and his family at that tough time. And, hopefully they can rally around each other and, find peace. I know it'd be tough for people. I was thinking about, watching like Kobe Bryant's family and stuff like that at the memorial, and how much strength Vanessa Bryant showed going up there talking about her daughter and her husband who tragically died like that. In situations like that, man, it's hard to try to find, answers, especially like in situations where people die tragically like that. But my heart go out to Vonn Bell and his family. Hope they find peace. What's going on, Garcelle? How far do you think guys will go this year? I assume you mean this year. I don't know, man. This is tough. I feel like, I don't know, man. I think the Saints, they're probably going to go like 11-5 this season. Looking at the New Orleans Saints, and some of the pieces probably ain't going to end up coming back due to, free agency and not being able to pay some guys. I think they're going to go 11-5, but I do think 11-5 can be good enough to win this division. I look at the Carolina Panthers. I think they're going to be better under Matt Rule. I think that he's a good coach. I think he's a guy who is a leader of men. And I heard that they're going to try to bring back Cam Newton. So you have that quarterback, that's been in the NFC South. And we all know what Cam Newton can do when he's healthy. So I think the Saints are probably going to end up going 11-5. I don't see them going 13-3 again. I think they're going to probably, end the season at 11-5. But I still think they're going to win the division. What's going on, man? Shouts out to my frat brother James Sanders on a live. Anthony, what's going on? Good morning to you. And man, another thing I wanted to mention, this NFL draft season. The combine is coming up. Quarterbacks, I think they're going to end up, throwing on tomorrow. I'm interested to see some of the quarterbacks that a lot of people have been throwing out there. People like, I think Jacob Eason, Jordan Love, Jake Fromm, Jalen Hurts. I'm interested to see guys like that. I'm interested to see, some of the throws that these guys are going to make. I know a lot of people want the Saints to draft a quarterback at the 24th position, but I just don't feel like none of these quarterbacks are a sure thing. I don't look at none of these quarterbacks as being like a franchise quarterback going down the line. I mean, Joe Burrow, I think you can look at him as a franchise quarterback, but I mean, he's going to go first overall. And maybe you can throw Justin Herbert out there. Maybe he'll be a franchise quarterback, but I don't see Justin Herbert being one of those leaders of the NFL. I look at him just being a middle of the pack quarterback. But I'm interested to see some of these other guys who can, throw and make some things happen. Maybe, solidify their draft position or even move up. Jalen Hurts is a guy that a lot of people have unanswered questions about, and he's straddling that fence about, is he a quarterback or should we make him like a wide receiver or something like that? So he has a lot to prove. Jake Fromm is another guy. A lot of people think that he has a very low ceiling. He can go out there and make some throws, and hopefully he can, get better draft positioning. But a lot of people are saying that he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be a journeyman type backup. So these guys have a lot to prove, man. I mean, Justin Herbert, they say that he's good. He has elite talent, but he's not a leader. I'm interested to see what some of these quarterbacks can do. The big story for I don't know what reason is Joe Burrow having small hands. I mean, is it a slow news day or something like that? I mean, they ain't got nothing else to talk about. Why are you talking about a man's hands? Talking about he got small hands? Like, I don't know, man. That's just ridiculous to me. Nobody cares about a guy's hands, except for these scouts out there who just want to try to find something to nitpick about in the media who be desperate for a story. I don't think that it's going to affect Joe Burrow at all as far as a quarterback. And, people start putting up those little stats and all that kind of stuff and talk about quarterbacks with 9-inch hands. Nobody reached the Super Bowl. Whatever, dude. Like, who cares? Like, I think that Joe Burrow is a gamer. He has a confidence about himself that you don't really see in quarterbacks, especially at that position. He's a guy who, believes in himself. It comes off as, borderline arrogance, but I don't look at it that way. If you don't believe in yourself, then who is going to believe in you? So I think I have a lot of faith in Joe Burrow, but I'm interested to see some of these quarterbacks throw. I'm interested to see some of these wide receivers, man, a position that the New Orleans Saints desperately need, a number 2. I'm interested to see if some of these wide receivers going to go out here and play and catch some balls, man, and, run some real good 40 times. I think Justin Jefferson is a guy that can improve his draft stock, even though I think he's going to go in the first round. Jared Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, these guys are pretty much going to be like top 15 picks regardless. Henry Ruggs III, he can improve his draft stock, with a good 40 and a good, good catch drill. I think he can improve his as well. But the Saints desperately need a number 2 receiver. They desperately need one. Michael Thomas is not going to be the guy that people just let fly under the radar anymore. I mean, between him having 149 catches and being offensive player of the year, I mean, he's not a secret anymore. I mean, he's the first time I think since Jerry Rice or something like that you had an offensive player of the year at the wide receiver position. So everybody's going to be looking at Michael Thomas. So you need that good number 2. And I'm looking to see if the number 2 can get all press coverage, man. Like, I'm tired of watching guys get pressed at the line of scrimmage, get bullied. The Saints need somebody that has good hands off the line of scrimmage, that can hand fight and get that separation. So I want to see that. I'm tired of watching these guys who have a lot of potential but can't get off the line of scrimmage, get bullied and all that kind of stuff. Now, I can't say what I've been watching, how the Emmanuel Butler in the offseason. I'm interested to see what he's going to do, man. I mean, I follow him on social media, and the guy just been training every single day. And man, I really been liking what I've been seeing out of Emmanuel Butler. I think a lot of people aren't giving this man enough credit. I think it's probably because we didn't see him and he was on the practice squad throughout the whole entire season. And a lot of people are asking the question, well, why didn't we see Emmanuel Butler last season? Why didn't we see him play? And he kind of flies under the radar because I think we just kind of write him off to say, well, he didn't play, so he must not be that good. Man, this dude right here, I mean, looking at him, I mean, he's getting stronger. He's getting more physical. And I like what the Saints did. You put that guy out there and you probably destroy his confidence. You give him like something like a red shirt year where you develop his body, you develop his skills. You give him an off season where he can work out and get even more stronger. You might have yourself a number two. And this is the year is going to decide what we think about Emmanuel Butler. So, man, don't write him off and say that he won't be a number two. A guy that they probably can line up on the inside and cause a lot of problems, man. Probably like an even better Brandon Coleman, because I feel like he's a little bit more physical than Brandon Coleman was. I think the game was a little bit too big for him, and what I seen out in preseason, I think in training camp he did really good, but in the actual game, I think the lights got a little bit too bright for him, especially a guy that's coming from a small school out of northern Arizona, a school that's, nobody really too much heard of, and then you playing in a big time, and, everybody looking at you and, but I mean, he fits the part, man. I mean, when I seen this guy in his rookie season with a Saints uniform on, I mean, this dude looked like the second coming of Megatron or something like that. I'm talking about as far as what the uniform looked like on him. And, he's only going to get stronger and he only going to get more physical, man. So for him to be that young and look that physically imposing in a uniform that early in his career, I mean, the sky's the limit for Emmanuel Butler. So, man, don't write him off. Please do not write him off. If you have any questions that you want to ask, anything in regards to the Saints, please, go ahead and comment down below. Let me know what you all think, about the Saints, who you think they're going to pick up in the NFL draft, what position you feel like the Saints need to, address. I know a few things about the New Orleans Saints as far as like free agency. I see some guys not coming back, guys that probably going to shock you. Some guys that I feel like is not going to shock anybody is Andrews Pete. I don't think Andrews Pete is going to come back in the Saints uniform. I think he's going to end up going to somebody else, and I think he's going to change his position. I think he's going to go back to the position he played at Stanford, which is the left tackle position. The thing about Andrews Pete was one of those guys that kind of rotated on the offensive line. So I think he played like every position, from left tackle to right tackle to the guard position. So he's probably going to go to a team that pays him the most money, and he's going to play the position that pays him the most money, which is the left tackle position. And I think Andrews Pete is going to do a good job, man. I think that Andrews Pete is going to be a really good left tackle. And, it's not like Andrews Pete can't play. I think sometimes, he can get a bullet, but he's a really good player, and I'm not going to take anything away from Andrews Pete. Sometimes I just feel like sometimes when he goes up against some of those elite pass rushers, I don't know if guys be talking to him and, he let it get in his head or he gets afraid, but he can play when he wants to, man. I mean, I know it's been a couple weeks where we just don't talk about Andrews Pete, or we talk about his physical play. So I think he's going to end up being somebody's left tackle, and I think that the Saints are not going to bring him back. Another guy that I don't think they're going to bring back is A.J. Klein. That would be a shock to a lot of people, but I don't think they're going to bring back A.J. Klein. I like A.J. Klein, but, I don't think A.J. Klein ever played 16 games with the New Orleans Saints. He was always hurt. There's always a shoulder here. There's always a knee there, and I think the Saints need to get younger at the linebacker position. I mean, you already got a leader in Demario Davis. So if you bring in young linebackers, you got somebody they can learn under and somebody that can help them elevate their game. You look at somebody like Caden Ellis. Somebody got hurt early in the season, but Caden Ellis played so well, being a 7th-round pick, that he was able to be in a starting rotation. You look at somebody like him who we haven't seen. And I think that we're in a Who Dat Nation. Sometimes we think that we need this guy, we need that guy, we need this position, that position, because guys get hurt. And we all know, man, if it ain't in your face or we haven't talked about it in a few weeks, all of a sudden it's not there. But I like Caden Ellis as a young linebacker, man. He's a guy that runs sideline to sidelines. He can guard a running back coming out of the backfield. He's a guy that can tackle really well. If he put his hands on you, you're going down. And I've seen a lot of good things out of him. So I think that AJ Klein is going to be one of those guys that's going to be a casualty. Another guy who I feel like is going to be a casualty is somebody that we talked about at the beginning when it started, and that's Vonn Bell. Look, I like Vonn Bell, but I got a lot of unanswered questions going on with Vonn Bell. He didn't answer a lot of questions for me. And I always am very, skeptical of guys who play mediocre, throughout their entire career. But when it's time for a contract year to come up, all of a sudden they playing lights out. I'm always asking a question like, where was that all season? Like where was that a couple of years ago? Like you waiting for you to get a big contract, or you have an opportunity to get a big contract, and now you want to show the world that you can play. And that makes me think, like, when you get that big contract, will you just go back into your shell and not go out here and elevate your game? Yeah, Vonn Bell led the league. He led the league, as a matter of fact, in forced fumbles. And yeah, he had his best season at the safety position with the Saints, and he even had his first interception with the New Orleans Saints. But why all this happening in a contract year? I mean, you could have played much better throughout your entire career. And he did some things well. I'm not going to knock him or anything like that. I mean, when it's time for the blitz, the safety blitz, I mean, he gets home. I think we remember that playoff game against the Carolina Panthers when the Saints sent the blitz. I think we remember that, Vonn Bell, he was the one that tackled Cam Newton to seal the deal to go into the divisional round of the playoffs. So when you look at the way that this guy has played, throughout his career with the New Orleans Saints, I think you got to be happy with some of the things you've seen. But I don't think that he is a guy who I feel like the Saints are going to bring back, especially since you looked at C.J. Gardner-Johnson playing his place. And people can argue to say that C.J. Gardner-Johnson played better than Vonn Bell did. And I think that when you look at C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I don't think you're going to see a drop in his game. I think what you see is what you get. I think this guy plays with a lot of passion. I look at him in a couple of years, he's going to have a C on his chest because he plays with that much passion, man. I think we all can remember him sitting in the end zone at the end of that game against the Minnesota Vikings when the Saints lost, and him sitting there with tears in his eyes, and people, they laughed at him and made fun of him and stuff like that for doing that. But that just shows you the passion that guy has for the game. And I think we remember that game with the Tennessee Titans when he knocked the block off one of those wide receivers and forced that fumble. So you look at the way that C.J. Gardner-Johnson played versus Vonn Bell. I mean, he just makes the defense look more physical in the secondary. So I don't know if Vonn Bell is going to come back. So I think those are the three guys that's probably going to end up going to other teams because I don't feel the Saints are going to bring them back because they feel like they probably have younger players that are a little bit more hungry and a little bit more cheaper than those guys. Let's see. Frank Bridges says always that diamond in the rough. Yep, there's always a diamond in the rough. And one thing you can't say about Jeff Ireland and the Saints scout team, they do a really good job at finding these guys late in the draft. All those guys that people don't really pay that much attention to. If you look at the Saints over the past couple years, in those late rounds, they have players who have been contributing to the team. You look at somebody like Will Clapp, that came in and you can rotate him on the offensive line. You look at somebody like Alex Anzalone, who was a late round draft pick. You look at somebody like Caden Ellis, who was a late round draft pick. Guys that they can find late in the draft, and even C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I mean, he was late in the draft. So they do a really good job at finding some of these players late in the draft and guys that kind of fly under the radar. And these guys come in and they become starters right away. So shouts out to Jeff Ireland and the scout team for finding them. Mark Joseph says we need fast linebackers and another defensive end opposite of Cam to get pressure. Mark, I agree with you. We need faster linebackers. I think we need young, physical linebackers. I think that the days of just being a linebacker that can tackle is over. You need to be able to guard the tight ends and also guard the running back. Excuse me, the running back out of the backfield. You got to be able to do that. You got to be a sideline to sideline type guy. Two people that I feel like the game is kind of transitioning into is the Cowboys linebackers, Jalen Smith and Lathan Vander Esch. I think that those two young linebackers are what the league is all about now. Guys that can tackle and also guys that can cover, the running back and the tight end. So if you don't have that type of linebacker, then your team most likely is going to suffer, especially in those immediate routes that teams can throw. You get that running back out the backfield. I mean, you make that linebacker, miss on that linebacker, and then all of a sudden, you down the field for about 20 plus yards. So you need yourself an athletic linebacker. And you look at somebody like Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson, a guy that's probably going to get drafted in the top 5. He's like that new linebacker that everybody wants. So the Saints, like I said, Caden Ellis. Caden Ellis is, that young linebacker that I feel like can be the future of the New Orleans Saints, and a guy that can, be under the wing of a Demario Davis, and he can make a lot of noise. Also, man, I feel like at the cornerback position, I think the Saints can get you look at somebody like C.J. Henderson out of Florida. He's a guy that I feel like can be really good for the New Orleans Saints. You can line him up on the outside or the inside. But I think the Saints, what they lack is playmakers in the secondary. You need guys that can not only cover but also get those interceptions. And I think the Saints cornerbacks need to work on turning their heads around, because I feel like the Saints would lead the league in turnovers if that was the case. I think that if these guys can turn their heads around, you wouldn't have this problem. But the Saints, they will be needing some help. In the secondary, because I don't think Patrick Robinson is coming back, and I definitely don't think P.J. Williams is coming back. So you're going to need a slot corner. I wouldn't be surprised the Saints end up trying to go into free agency, trying to find a slot corner. I don't think they're probably going to draft somebody to be that starter. If they do draft somebody at the cornerback position, I think it's going to who's going to fight for a starting job. If he gets the starting job, then he earned it. But I don't think the Saints are going to be looking for a corner in a draft. I don't think they're going to be looking for that guy to be that starter. I think they're probably going to look in free agency and try to find somebody that they can actually bring in. And as far as with the defensive end position, I think they have Marcus Davenport. The problem is Marcus Davenport isn't healthy. I think when Marcus Davenport is healthy, I think he's really good, on that left side. I think he does a really good job setting the edge. And as we know, for the last few games that he played before he got hurt, I think he had like 4 sacks, in 3 games. So, I mean, he was coming on. He was making some noise. I think he had 6 sacks this past season. So, I ain't ready to write him off yet, man. I think we kick the right people off, especially when they get hurt. And we feel like it's just going to be a reoccurring thing. He reminds me of probably a level lower than this person, but a Jadeveon Clowney. Clowney's the same way. Clowney has elite skills. He's a freak of nature, but he just can't stay healthy. But when he is healthy, he does a lot of good things. So I'm interested to see Marcus Davenport in year number 3. Hopefully this won't be one of those reoccurring things. I don't think so. He's young, so he still has a lot to learn. I think he's maybe like just 22 years old. So the sky's the limit for Davenport. And I know what people are thinking. They're comparing him to Lamar Jackson. The fact that we could have got Lamar Jackson, but we moved up instead to get him, and he's been hurt. And Lamar Jackson has done nothing but just be the MVP of the entire league. I get it, but I'm not ready to write him off yet. But I do think they need to get another, free agent, a guy at the defensive end position, a guy that can get pressure on the quarterback, somebody like Everson Griffin. I heard that he's going to opt out his contract with the Minnesota Vikings. I can see him being with the New Orleans Saints, being in that rotation. He's a guy, who's up there in age. He's not going to be, getting huge money or anything like that. I think it's going to fall into the price range of what the New Orleans Saints can afford. But that's what I think about that. But I mean, that's my take, man. I thank y'all for checking out this video. I ask that y'all subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search The State of the Saints Podcast. Like I said, the video about Henry Ruggs III is available on YouTube right now. And also subscribe to the State of the Game podcast that's available on YouTube as well. Thank y'all, and I hope y'all have a good day. And hope you have a productive day, and y'all be safe out there, and much love to you. And thank you for supporting the State of the Saints podcast. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?